Here we are again with our Texas Instruments BA2 Plus, our trusty financial calculator, and say we're going to do some capital budgeting. So we've got a project that we're looking at, that an investment or piece of equipment, whatever the case may be, that we're going to invest in, and then it's going to generate a certain amount of cash flows for a certain number of years in the future. All right. So how do we use our calculator to solve for whether we should accept that project or not? All right. So the buttons we're going to use this time are the CF button for cash flows, the NPV, net present value, and the IRR, the internal rate of return. So here's our example. We've got a $10,000 investment that will return us $5,000 the first year in cash flows, $4,000 the second year, and $2,000 in years 3 and 4. So we first hit our CF button, cash flow button. Again, don't forget that the calculator stores any values you've had in there. So if you have values that come up, hit the second and the clear button to erase those so we can start out fresh. All right, so the initial investment of this project is $10,000. So we're going to put that in the CFO button. That's how much we're going to have to pay out now to generate cash flows in the future. So we hit 10,000, and then we need to make that negative because we're paying it out. It's a cash outflow. So hit the plus minus, then hit enter, and the down arrow so we can start entering our future cash flows. CO1, the first cash flow, is 5,000. So we hit 5,000, enter, and the down arrow. Now again, FO1 is frequency, so how often, how many times in a row does that 5,000 occur? It only occurs once, so we'll leave that as 1 and hit the down arrow again to enter our second cash flow. Cash flow for year 2 is 4,000. So hit 4,000, enter. Again, it happens once. So we hit the down through the FO2 to our third cash flow, CO3. Now, in years 3 and 4, this investment returns $2,000. So 2,000, enter, down. But since this happens, the 2,000 happens twice in a row, we hit 2 for our frequency. So 2, enter, and you can hit the down arrow. You don't have to, because now we've entered all of our cash flows. Now we want to say, all right, is this investment worth taking on? All right, because we've had to pay out $10,000 to receive these 4 years of cash flows. So there's 2 ways we can calculate that. We can calculate the net present value of the project, which basically compares the initial investment minus the present value of all the future cash flows. Or we can calculate the internal rate of return, basically what rate of return makes the initial investment equal to the present value of the cash flows. So first we're going to do net present value, so we hit NPV, and it asks us for an interest rate. So basically, what required rate of return are you going to discount those cash flows back at? And we're going to use 10%. So we hit 10. Remember, we put in interest rates as whole numbers. So 10, enter. Hit the down arrow, and it asks us for NPV. Then we hit compute, and you see the NPV of this project is $719.90, rounded. Now, those of you that remember my prior videos, this is basically the same way as calculating the present value of a mixed stream of cash flows, except in this example we have an initial investment that we put in to compare those present value of cash flows against. So, since the NPV is positive, that means we should accept the project. The present value of the future cash flows is greater than what it's going to cost us. So the benefits outweigh the costs. Now, to calculate the internal rate of return, all it takes is 2 more buttons. All you do is hit IRR, because we already have the cash flows in there. We don't have to re-enter the cash flows since the calculator stores them. So after we hit IRR, then we hit compute. You can see the IRR, the internal rate of return of this project, is 13.99%. Again, we compare that to the cost of capital, or our 10%, to see whether we should accept the project or reject it. Since the IRR of this project is higher than the cost of capital of 10%, we should accept it. Hopefully this helps in doing capital budgeting problems with your calculator.